Good morning. Good morning. This works so much better when there's a microphone in place. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Hope you're all having a fine old day. I'm going to say good morning to my old mate Frank over at Dark on Demo. Just joined us over on Instagram. Mark Whiting has just walked through the door. Chris Ford, morning all. Don't mention the football. I wasn't planning to. That's West Ham's season done and dusted, I believe. I think we are headed for the championship. Sad but true. Oh, excuse me. Dan Cullen has given us the go signal. Good morning, all he says. Who was first off the mark this morning? I'm fairly sure it was our friend Jim. Morning, peeps, he says. Morning, Jim. And Gary Muirhead as well. Good morning, everyone. Day three in the Big Brother house. That's my Geordie, by the way. Well, at least the meter is still going round and we're still getting paid. It's still bad up your way, is it? Funnily enough, I've got a video for you tomorrow from Montana, Saskatoon to be precise. Hereabouts where I'm sat right now, our efforts to combat the snow and ice is one gritter lorry that covers pretty much the whole of Surrey. We don't take it particularly seriously down here. They do it rather differently up in western Montana, in Saskatoon. I'll bring that to you tomorrow. Who else do we have here? You up in court again today with a shirt on? Yeah, listen, I don't know quite why it's taken me this long. Back in my previous life, when I used to go out, I've got a wardrobe upstairs full of suits and shirts and ties, and they've been parked up to the point. This is no word of a lie. I've got a really smart black Paul Smith jacket, sort of blazery sort of arrangement. Good few quid's worth, I have to say. A bit of a fan of Paul Smith on the quiet, so paid extra money for it. It's got a fantastically Paul Smith lining on it. I went to wear it just before Christmas, and the shoulders were covered in dust, and it wasn't dust from me; it was just dust from the wardrobe. So it just kind of made me wonder why I'm not wearing the clothes that I already possess. You know, I tend to turn up in t-shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies and that kind of thing when I've got a wardrobe of better clothes. So yeah, I thought, well, I'll pitch up today. You'll notice, I'm still chilled. I'm still laid back. I haven't bothered to do up the top button or anything like that. I'm just rolling with things here. Now that's gone. Something's just gone completely weird on my. There we are. That makes much more sense. My screen just went a bit mental. Ken Hatcher. He says good morning, and he's got lots of chilly faces. It's warmer here today. We're back up into the positive temperatures. I think we're about 2 or 3 degrees. Still feels cold, but nowhere near as cold as it was earlier this week. And don't you just love spell correction? No fritter. I think that's gritter with us this morning. Roads are like glass. Yeah, funnily enough, our temperatures, as I say, a bit warmer today than they have been. But my wife's car it's not covered in frost, it's covered in actual ice. And I looked down the road, I'm not going anywhere today, but I looked down the road earlier and it is literally gleaming. It's just waiting for somebody to go and clear out another lamppost or something. So people, be careful out there. Wrap up nice and warm, would you? We don't want any incidents or accidents. Andy Thornton has just arrived saying, morning all. Does that mean as he's here on time, do I have to go and find some dancing girls and some free money? It probably does. Not sure where I've put them. I put them away for Christmas. And I can't remember which cupboard they're in. If I find them, Andy, you'll be the first to know. Gary Muirhead says, shirt and tie on the top, pajamas on the bottom. You wouldn't want to know what's going on the bottom. It's jeans, actually. But yeah. Andy says, yes, please. Andy, I'll see what I can do. We've got a packed show for you today. I will be cracking on in just a moment. We had a weird day yesterday, though. And I don't know quite what made it happen. It certainly wasn't by any kind of design on my part. Show ended yesterday, and I started to break the thing up into its constituent parts to put on YouTube and Instagram and stuff. Had a phone call from America, which is not in itself particularly unusual. That happens from time to time. But then I had another one, and then I had another one, and then I had another one. I spent most of yesterday afternoon talking to America. Not Donald Trump-esque speaking to the nation, but I don't know what it was. It was almost like somebody had passed around a memo. That Mark Anthony bloke, You know, him with the weird accent and the silly hat. He's back. Let's all phone him from America. I don't know what was that. All that was about. They were all completely disconnected. One was related to Conexpo, which I fully understand because that's only a couple of months away now. But the rest completely disparate. Dan saying, yeah, Dan, he's not. We said yesterday he was on his way to Shrewd. He is, but not until Monday. He is apparently in a place called Wootton under Edge. Under the edge of what? I saw that when it came through on the WhatsApp group. But the edge of what exactly? I mean, I can understand you being on the edge of a forest or a river, but under the edge? I wonder what the edge is. If anyone knows, please let us know. Should we crack on? I think we probably should. Let me roll the intro and get this show on the road because we've got plenty to get through. Very quickly, we've got Andy Thornton's suggestion is Under the Edge of Sanity. That should be the other name for this show, shouldn't it, really? No Bono. No Bono. Not sure what that's about. And apparently it's the Edge of the Cotswolds. Edge of the Cotswolds, you could pop in and have a quick chat with Mr. Clarkson, assuming he's there. Go and have lunch at his pub, possibly. I don't know. Be careful, though. You could well run into David Cameron, which would be far less fun, I would imagine. It is Wednesday. It is Wednesday, the 7th of January. I had to check. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, Caterpillar Tech rocks CES show in Las Vegas. RM Contractors take the Hitachi option. Taking a walk around the CASE VX, that should be CX, I think, 250E. Excavator, and we've got a whole new perspective. That's the wrong caption, but we're talking Komatsu and Montebear a bit later in the show. Plus, in my morning monologue today, normalising the abnormal. Yes, that's what we're going to be talking about. But we've plenty to get through, as I say, already on that show. So let me press. What button do I press right about now? I think we need a bit of cat, followed by a bit of cat. Here we go. I like how all our suggestions for the Cotswolds involve food. Ken Hatter said, or Susie Jet. I think that's how you pronounce it. Susie Jet at Cotswold Airport for breakfast. Yeah, Ken knows his airports. He also knows his breakfast as well. So there you are, Susie Jet, Cotswold Airport. Dan, if you're at a loose end and you fancy a bit of breakfast, you know where to go. I've already mentioned the fact that ConExpo is now just a couple of months away. We'll be heading to Las Vegas, to the Las Vegas Convention Center. Well, the Las Vegas Convention Center is busy right now with the Consumer Electronics Show, CES. Oh, in recent years, it's become a bit of a hangout for the technologically advanced from this part of the industry. Bobcat have been there, Komatsu have been there. Caterpillar was one of the first, and Caterpillar are back with the latest of their technology. And this is what it looks like. This is Cat at CS, but it's also a good look around Vegas, where I will be, and Ken Hatcher will be in just a couple of months' time.
Welcome to Caterpillar CES 2025. We are thrilled to be here and showcasing our technology, our autonomy, our electrification, and the technology that's going to take Cat into the next 100 years.
CES is the premier show when it comes to innovation and new technologies coming out.
We're able to showcase at this show our past 100 years and how we're building upon that legacy.
This is a great opportunity for Caterpillar to show off some of the innovations that we've got going on within the company.
It's really a great place for us to showcase our problem solving. That's really what it's about.
We've been a great equipment company for now 100 years. Being involved here shows our customers that we can provide integrated solutions that include technology, not just providing great products and service. We also have the infrastructure to support everything globally through our dealer network and directly through Caterpillar and all of our affiliates.
These are mature technologies that we've been working with customers on for years and decades. We're continuing to improve those technologies with the capabilities around machine learning and generative AI to take that data analytics and create better insights for our customers and create better outcomes.
It's not just technology for technology's sake, it's really how do I help the customer solve the problem and ultimately add value to them. And so the result is some really cool technologies that we see, things like Cat Command, Vision Link software, autonomy, hybrid retrofit that's here on the stand, energy management, all these things that are, again, solving the customer problem. That's what's exciting.
The real magic comes in actually helping our customers implement those technologies. And that's where you see a strong heritage in product support and services, and actually being on the site with the customer and helping bring those technologies to life.
One of the things that you'll see here is that deep integration of site infrastructure, so we understand our customers' needs around safety, sustainability, economics, productivity, and can really bring those innovative solutions to the customers to help them create better outcomes and build a more sustainable world.
Everything that you build here at CAT touches somewhere else outside of our existing communities. So it's really amazing that we have a global reach and have those opportunities to really drive change around the world.
You know, you take a look at all of the opportunities we have from a sustainability perspective and a strategy perspective. The energy transition gives us the opportunity of so many areas of growth.
We can really see and feel and breathe what we can do in the space of technology, of the energy transition.
Innovation is at the heart of what Caterpillar does. We're talking to customers, we're talking about what they want to achieve, we're talking about the outcomes that they want to get, and we're then trying to come up with solutions to solve their problems. And I think that's why we'll continue to be innovating for the next 100 years.
I'm excited to be a part of building the future based on that long legacy of the last 100 years and what is the next 100 years that we're going to create for our company and our customers.
I'll hop over to the chat in just a moment, but very, very quickly. CES, back in the day, 5-10 years ago, CES was the big showcase for the likes of Apple and Google and Microsoft and Tesla and people like that. The very fact that the plant manufacturers like Caterpillar and Komatsu and so on are using it to showcase their technology, I think shows just how far this industry has come. In addition to that, I couldn't find a horizontal video of it, but apparently Bobcat have launched the Bobcat Rogue X3. We've seen the Rogue X2 before, but the Rogue X3 is actually at CES. If you go to the Bobcat YouTube channel, you will actually see they've got a vertical video of it. You don't get to see too much. I'm hoping that they will actually do a horizontal video as well. Going back to Ken Hatcher, who says, where we are, I bet they don't move that stand. It's ready for ConExpo. I do wonder about that because the Las Vegas Convention Center, incidentally, on the subject of the Las Vegas Convention Center, this is the first show that has been hosted since the entire Las Vegas Convention Center has been upgraded. $600 million have gone into that convention center. I mean, obviously, it's the convention and exhibition center of America. So, you know, it's long overdue, I would say. So looking forward to seeing exactly what they've done with that. But I'm fairly sure there are several more shows between now and ConExpo. I'd be very, very surprised if Caterpillar could actually sort of just leave that where it is, because I think there will be other stuff happening there as well. He says massive consumer electronics show with that. Yeah, absolutely. I thought there was a big pawn show in February in Las Vegas. I wouldn't know, Ken, but I'm glad you've got your finger on that particular pulse. I want to say good morning to Shahid Raza Khan. Good morning, and he says hello, everyone. Good morning, Shahid Raza Khan. Where are you watching from, Shahid? Be interested to know. And Cam Wakenshaw, who was here yesterday and he's back. He says, "Good morning. Sorry I'm late. What did I miss?" I couldn't possibly say, but Andy Thornton, picking up where I usually leave off, you missed the dancing girls and the money giveaway, and he missed it as well. Yeah, you see, you arrive late. Just Cam, in case you don't know, if you arrive late for this show, you do miss the free money and the dancing girls, which are a regular on this show, as you probably know. And Dan Cullen saying, "Good morning, newcomers." Yeah, newcomers and latecomers. Good morning to you, one and all. Let us press on, shall we? I think we need a bit of. I've done things out of order, so I'm going to have to kind of reverse engineer this thing. So I'll do this first, and then we'll be talking Hitachi.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, new film from the fine folks at Hitachi. RM Contractors have invested in Hitachi equipment, and this is why.
Hi, I'm Tom Scarborough, Head of Engineering, Technical and QA at RM Contractors. At RM, we've been a customer with Hitachi for the last 30 years. We've built strong relationships with those that work at Hitachi. During this time, we've watched the industry implementing GPS solutions, and earlier this year, we purchased 4 machines including base and cab kits. Following our own internal trial and review period, we recently decided to purchase a further 14 machines with base kits and a further 4 cab kits to strengthen our fleet. We have found that using Leica GPS systems, it saves our engineers time and increases our site efficiency. This can be seen through material management and site outputs. We are looking forward to continuing our investment over the next few years as we look to expand our fleet further.
I'm Chris Watts. I'm the manager for the road and sewers on the Vistry job in Kidlington. My responsibilities are drainage, construction of road and pond areas. We've recently acquired these 2 new 210s with the Leica system on a project for Vistry in Kidlington. The new Leica systems allows me to save time, to save money and to save manpower. What I like best about an Hitachi is the reliability and the backup.
There you are. I'm going to go back to the chat because John Paul Fitzmaurice has just joined us. He's been absent for a while, came back yesterday, he's back again today. Morning, John. Hope you're fitting well. Jim says, "I reckon that Chris Watts used to work at our place." Well, you would know that better than I. I'm going to go back a little bit further in the chat. Ken Hatcher talking about the porn show that's apparently happening in February in Las Vegas. I thought you would have known. You see, once I quit my porn career, don't ask. Once I quit my porn career, I was much the same as the NFDC treated me. I was treated like an outcast. I was thrown out. So I don't get an invite to the porn show in Las Vegas anymore. I never got an invite in the first place, to be perfectly honest. But yes, my connections with the porn industry are purely as a consumer these days. I don't want to go down that road. Going back even further, when we talk about CES, Gary Muirhead said, "It's like my Cat 352 that I've got now. I can tell you the weight inside the bucket, how many passes you do per shift, and the tons of material you've moved in that day. Yeah, Big Brother is most definitely watching." All goes back. This is a subject that we've covered quite a bit. This notion of, I think the first time I heard it was from Volvo, talking about the gamification of the industry. You know, if you are that way inclined, you know, if you look at the number of passes you did on Monday, would there not be a bit of you that thinks I could probably beat that on Tuesday? And then you look at the figures for Tuesday, and on Wednesday you think probably get a few more in. I do think there's a kind of an underlying gamification and kind of making you compete with yourself, if not others on the site as well. Dan saying we're going back to Wooten Under the Edge, or Under Edge rather. The actual name is Watutan or Wootton from Anglo-Saxon times, means homestead village. The edge refers to the limestone escarpment of the Cotswolds Edge. I've got a funny feeling you've looked that up, Dan. That's kind of the information that most people don't have kicking around in the old grey matter. But thank you for that. At the escarpment of the Cotswolds Edge. Hitachi is way underpowered, according to Dan. Ken, are you going to it? Are you taking Barbie? I don't know. Did you spend your time tossing it off in your previous career? No, I did not. I did not. I was purely creating articles. Listen, I've been open about this before. I did about a 4-year career writing regularly for Razzle and I can't remember what the other one was called. Was it Fiesta, possibly? All of that is water under the bridge. Yeah, I'll bore you with it about it sometime. But the one thing I do, well, 2 things I remember very, very vividly. You would think, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I kind of had this like, stereotyped idea of what the editorial office of a porn magazine might look like. I had it down as lots of middle-aged men, seedy looking and wearing raincoats, even indoors and stuff like that. Almost the entire staff were female. And the other bit that I remember most distinctly is having written for them I was a regular columnist. I mean, not boasting, it's just the case. I was a regular columnist. I was producing a monthly column in a magazine. After I'd been doing it for a couple of years, I got wind of the fact that they were hosting a Christmas get-together. And I thought, wow, in for a penny, in for a pound. And I said, as a regular columnist, do I get an invite to this event with all the semi-naked and fully naked women? No. No, I did not. There you are. Let's have a look. That's Jim. I do that when loading trucks and wagons, time myself trying to save seconds off the loading time. Yeah. Yeah, there's, as I say, that whole gamification, it's something we've touched on quite a few times. I mean, even one of the articles that I wrote just before Christmas, that idea of a sort of global league table. But if you were logged into a regular league table, and we're talking about league tables in the morning monologue today. If you were logged into a regular league table, I mean, for example, let's take Gary as an example. If there were a Cat 352 league table globally, how many bucket loads you can process in a day, your slew time and, your loading times and everything else, there would be a temptation to just push that a little bit harder, which I think from a productivity standpoint, possibly a good thing. From a health and safety standpoint, maybe. Gary Muir says, it's a prawn show, Ken, a fisherman's show in Las Vegas. The funny thing is, at 60, nearly 61 years old, I'd rather go to the fisherman show than the porn show. Sad but true. Dan says the original town was burnt down during the reign of King John in 1199 to 1216, was rebuilt in 1272. Wikipedia is quite good. Yes, it is quite good. Don't think it's as good as my new best friend, Google Gemini, which I am loving to bits. Me and Nobby, the editor, yeah, we all hear it. I wrote I write all of the morning monologues. I wrote it today, showed it to Nobby, and he went, none of this makes sense, don't you? And he sorted it out for me. He didn't actually say that because he doesn't speak, and it did make sense. The idea. Dan says the fastest I've loaded a wagon was a Doosan 140, 2.25 seconds, and on a Doosan 300 it's 2.15. You've loaded a wagon. You've loaded a wagon in 2.25 seconds. How big was the wagon? That's not even a pass, is it? Surely that's just a single. Okay, that makes more sense. Dan saying 2 minutes. 2 minutes makes much more sense than 2.15 seconds. Because if you could load a truck in 2.15 seconds, man alive, you'd be popular. Not that you're not now, but a dinky toy. Yeah, I mean, even a dinky toy, and if I had a spoon, I'd struggle to load it in 2.15 seconds. 2.15 or 2.45 minutes. Yes, I can understand that. Jim says, I've seen plenty of videos on LinkedIn of muck shifting firms with 50-ton machines not working efficiently as they could be. Yeah, absolutely true. And I do think, I'm sure the other manufacturers do it, but one of the things that I experienced while I was working with Caterpillar all those years ago was they are very, very good at things like fleet optimization. And one of the things that surprised me was they are very, very honest with their appraisals. I mean, I've been to sites where they had a wheel loader or a big excavator, a face shovel, and a fleet of trucks. And the advice from Caterpillar was to actually buy smaller trucks because you can load them quicker, get them away quicker, get them back quicker, they cost less. Almost, I wouldn't say shooting themselves in the foot, because ultimately I would imagine that the customers would come back and say, thank you for saving us several million pounds and making us more efficient. But yeah, it's fleet optimization is a real thing. It's a real skill. I mean, even things like matching buckets and bucket fill factors to trucks and reach over the trucks and positioning of the excavator or the carrier and the trucks that you're loading. It really is an art form. And I know, as I say, I'm sure the other manufacturers do it exactly the same. I'm sure the likes of Liebherr, Komatsu, Hitachi all do the same, but I've seen it up close with Caterpillar and it is phenomenal. They are very, very adept at it. I guess they would be. They see this around the world all the time, I guess. So there you are. It's time to crack on. We're talking CASE excavators in a moment, but I need to do this first.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
You see one little comment from Jim, and you can already sense it. We're heading off down another path entirely. We'll go back to what Jim said. See plenty of videos, muck shifting firms, 50-ton plus machines not working efficiently. Dan says that's true, Jim. You wonder why these operators and companies not sorting it out. Ineffective operations seem to be different in the UK construction. I wouldn't necessarily say that's the case. I would say that's a problem around the world. And ultimately, I do think there is a degree of the social media bias. If you watch a video from a very good American operation or a very good Australian or New Zealand operation, don't forget that you are looking at what they want you to see. It might not be like that all the time. Whereas I do think we have a bit of a tendency here to just film something, vertically on our phone, bung that up, that'll do. At which point the haters arrive and say, oh, he's doing that wrong, that's unsafe, don't be doing that. I do think there's a degree of that. But there is always room for improvement. There absolutely is. Jim, on that very subject, says poor dumper and wagon placement, too many degrees of rotation per pass, pure digging practice and having to wait between trucks. Yeah, all of those will cost you dearly. That rotation, all that slew. I do remember that was one of the things that I was looking at when I was working with Caterpillar at the time. And I mean, they did it over the course of a year. I wish I could remember the numbers because it was astonishing. We were on an operation. It was down in Somerset, and it was Finning and Caterpillar looking at this operation, and they were basically slewing 180 degrees. So dig over here, load there, dig over there, load there. And they said, if you can set that up differently, change the way the face is set up. So rather than going through 180 degrees, you're going through 90 degrees. The amount of difference it made over the course of a year was astonishing. So yes, it's that thing, isn't it? I remember being taught this at school, that idea of if a cruise ship left Southampton and was just 1 degree out, by the time it had crossed the Atlantic, it would miss America. Because it kind of, and I think it's exactly the same, it's kind of an exponential gain if you can just reduce that 90 degrees of slew motion to load that much faster. Yeah. Dan says doing the same job 3 times over and wasting time wasting is relentless. Yeah, it is. It is. I also wonder if that's part and parcel of our move to site supervisors who do not supervise. I think we've engineered a system where site supervisors now live in a cabin on a laptop, sending reports back to the head office. Whereas in the years gone by, they would be walking around, partly making sure that everyone was safe and everyone was fit and well and everything else, but also keeping an eye on productivity and that kind of thing. And they tended to have come up through the ranks, so they could spot 100 paces. That could be better. That could be more efficient. He's doing that wrong, whatever it might be. I do wonder if that's something we've lost over the years. Don't start me on supervisors, Dan. I try not to start you on anything because I know where we'll end up. But yeah, it's as I say, I understand it, but one of the things I think that we've overlooked with that, I think we've fooled ourselves into believing that if we've got a site supervisor in a site cabin constantly sending email reports and updates back to head office, that has made us more productive. When in actual fact, be outside his door, things may be completely unproductive. I think we've lost sight of that. And even though I didn't start Dan, he's come back anyway and said many supervisors have no clue. Case. I promise you some case, and by God, some case you will get.
Hi, I'm Joris from Steelrist and I'm here to show you the powerful combination of the Steelrist X32 tilt rotator, the S70 quick coupler and the quantum control system installed on this CASE VX250E. This makes it a very versatile machine, especially when you combine it with the MCS from Hemisphere. The Steelrist X32 has a robust design and a cast steel construction. This makes it very strong, but also very light, which prevents unnecessary weight to the machine. The Steelrist X32 has a 360 degrees full rotation and 2 times 45 degree tilt in both directions. This makes the machine perfect for precision work like trenching, grading and placing objects. Also, the machine doesn't need to be replaced as much, which saves time and fuel. The X32 is equipped with a gripper which allows the operator to grab objects without leaving the cab.
Gary, I know. Thankfully, Gary is at home today. So, having just seen the first Steelrist of the day, he could probably go and have a cold shower now. But yeah, he also says, I think the new site supervisors just don't know, and all the old muck shifters have retired now. Yeah, yeah, and I do wonder about the gap between the old muck shifters who learned it on the job and hopefully would have been mentors for those coming behind them. They learned in a certain way and they did things in a certain way. We've got some newcomers, and the newcomers, we'll take our friend Steve Williamson as an example. Good operator, but I've seen him in action on a number of occasions. He's got all of the tech and everything else. But between Steve, who's I guess in his 30s, and those guys that were maybe in their 60s, there's kind of a bit of a lull, isn't there? Who's this? Jim. The firm should trust the GF to manage the job and make some money, not waste time sending reports back to the office. That's a secretary's job, yeah. It's not the case, though, is it? I mean, I've been on demolition jobs where the site supervisor is literally taking phone calls from the client, from head office, from his regional manager, and everything else, which is fine. Modern communication being what it is, you can keep things up to date and everything else. But, we used to talk about, progress photographs, a week or 2 weeks or even a month apart. But we've created a system now where we need to be updated hourly. To what end? Who gains from that? Apart from somebody being able to sit in a head office saying, I've got my report, tick. And while the bloke was sending you that report, he wasn't doing what he's actually being paid to do. Makes no sense to me at all. And we've got one more film to show you today. which is Komatsu, by the way. I do need to remind you of this very, very quickly. The books are still going out the door, which I'm very pleased about. In Defense of Demolition looks like this. Yes, that is our phalanx of demolition workers created with a powerful AI, which is why all the blokes in it look exactly the bleeding same. Right, okay, Komatsu and Montebear doing demolition. What's not to like?
Hi, I'm Matt Verstetta, Product Manager of the Demolition Excavators with Komatsu. We're here at a balmy Chicago today looking at the PC290 straight boom demolition excavator. This excavator is purpose-built for the demolition market from the factory. There are no aftermarket protection components on this machine. The first thing you'll notice is the one-piece straight boom, built strong for demolition and giving the operator great visibility to the work area, as well as the added height and reach. It features a heavy-duty revolving frame guards, under guards, a bucket cylinder guard, front and top window guards, and what you're seeing here is a complete Komatsu demolition package with the PC290, the Lenhoff quick coupler, and the Monobear attachments. Today, we're seeing a grapple and the multi-processing head. The Lenhoff quick coupler makes changing attachments easy, as the operator never needs to leave the cab of the machine, and the attachments are changed within seconds. Standard factory equipped +2 auxiliary hydraulics for the open, close, and rotation of the attachments are also included. And the PC290 makes it easy to store settings for up to 15 different attachments to ensure optimal attachment performance. Visibility is also enhanced with Komatsu's ComVision camera system, which gives the operator true 360-degree visibility around the machine for optimal job site awareness, as well as confident and efficient operation. All of this comes standard with the proven precision and responsiveness of Komatsu excavator controls, the comfort and spaciousness of the Komatsu excavator cab, and of course the strength and support of the entire Komatsu dealer network. Now, more than ever, Komatsu has a purpose-built set of solutions from the factory for the demolition industry. So to learn more about this machine, you can visit Komatsu.com, where we list a whole lineup of demolition excavators.
Yep, I totally agree, Dan. Some kit, I totally agree. Jim, going back to the site supervisor situation, easy to put cameras on site, then they can see the progress or the lack thereof in real time. Yeah, absolutely. Why not? It's amazing how quickly the demolition industry has adapted the oil quick system to their equipment. Is anyone familiar with the band Pulp? Pulp had been bubbling underground for about 17, 18 years before they released the song Common People, and at which point they became an overnight success. I would say exactly the same about Oil Quick. Going back more than a decade now, Rick Yarwood over at ECY was the UK importer, but an absolute advocate for Oil Quick in demolition. And it was like he was beating his head upon a locked door. Nobody wanted anything to do with it. And then one day, somebody, and I think that somebody was probably Richard Dolman at AR Demolition, opened the door and Oil Quick became a thing. An overnight success that was 10 years in the making, if you get my drift. Have you heard anything about MC Hale's takeover of Komatsu? No, I mean, I'm kind of expecting some sort of press release or something when it all becomes copper bottomed, as it were. But no, not heard anything since. There were significant cost increases on the Transmarsh project, which I was on. One contributing factor was project slippage caused by poor visibility between the main office and the site teams. Shouldn't be a problem anymore with modern technology. You can literally have an eye in the sky looking over these things, no problem at all. And even to the point, I know we're talking about cameras, but the latest generation of drones, stick a drone on the site, and you can literally set it to do a fly around, follow exactly the same path every single day, and you can check the progress in that way. There's no need for the site supervisor to be sat there punching reports. There really is not. Did I miss something? I feel like I did. There we are. Dan says, did you watch the video that Nigel put up? The industry doesn't look good at the moment. Where did he put it? I follow Nigel on LinkedIn, and I'm not seeing anything to that nature. If he's put it on TikTok, well, then I'm out the game because I don't do TikTok. Never even had TikTok on my phone. But if somebody can direct me to it, I'll go and have a look because I'd love to see it. Obviously, with these things, I speak from outside. I'm sat on the fence, on the edge of the industry. Nigel, obviously, like you guys, he's there, dirt under his fingernails and living and breathing it. I'd love to see what he's got to say about the current state of the industry. And to get an idea of my thoughts on the current state of the industry, we'll have a morning monologue in just a moment. So that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into that morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends and your colleagues, and anyone else that you know. And I hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and are that way inclined, I shall return in just a moment after this. I am constantly amazed at society's capacity to normalise the abnormal, our willingness and even eagerness to accept something that would have previously been unimaginable. Cast your mind back to 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic. One minute we were reading news reports of some disease outbreak in China, and the next we spent 2 years indoors, confined to barracks, our only topic of conversation, the brand of vaccination we'd all received. COVID and the resulting lockdown forced me to give up my job as a magazine journalist and to embrace live streaming. For almost the entirety of 2020, if I wasn't live streaming, I was learning how to. But regardless of what I was doing, each weekday, I would stop what I was doing, turn on the TV to find out just how many of my fellow citizens had died from COVID the previous day. Within just a few weeks, counting the dead became part of my daily routine. Now, that normalisation extends way beyond the confines of COVID, of course. We've normalised the fact that our politicians will say one thing and then do another. We've normalised the fact that the rule of law differs depending on how much money you have in the bank. We've normalised the fact that water companies place profits above the need for clean rivers and seas. We've normalised the fact that national leaders will seek to boost their waning popularity by starting a war in which thousands will die. Violent crime is a statistic. Hardcore pornography is mainstream, and a celebrity sex tape is not a cause for public embarrassment anymore. It's a fast track to celebrity status. And here in the demolition and construction industry, we've turned normalisation into an art form. 8,000 companies have gone to the wall in the past 2 years, and there's a collective shrug of acceptance. Tens of thousands of working men and women were forced into self-employed status to ease the strain on contractor bottom lines. No one batted an eyelid. Thousands of men and women are laid off in the run-up to the festive period so their employers can avoid the burden of paying so-called valuable staff at a time when workloads ease. When 10 UK demolition companies were found guilty of bid rigging and price fixing, the response was not one of dismay. Rather, the 10 firms remained within the industry fold, their crimes dismissed as just another example of the brown envelope system that had been in place longer than any one of us can remember. We've normalised working practices that we know to be risky, harmful and potentially deadly. And then there's the big one, the large woolly mammoth in the middle of the room, the universal acceptance of the seemingly unacceptable. Each year, in fact, each working day, there is an acceptance that millions of men and women will go to work on demolition and construction sites, but not all of them will make it home again. And those that do may well have been injured or maimed along the way. We know the causes, of course: working at height, slips, trips and falls, working in close proximity to heavy machinery. But rather than amending our working practices, we have risk assessments, we have toolbox talks, we have health and safety briefings. We've normalised hazards to the point where there is a system to record the occasions when those hazards claim victims. And worse still is the normalisation of site fatalities. Across industry, and specifically in the field of demolition and construction, we've become so accepting of death in the workplace that we've created a league table to monitor which industry sector kills the most each year. Think about that. Injuries and death in the workplace are so regular, so frequent, so normal that we keep score. And my part of the industry, the media part, is equally guilty, equally complicit. We've normalised site fatalities and the league table that records them to the point where 30 plus industry deaths aren't even worthy of the front page. Instead, there's a moment of reflection if the annual fatality stats rise, or there's a silent sigh of relief if they fall, and then we just go about our business again. We don't even ask the names of the deceased. Deaths are normalised to the point that dead workers are just numbers and statistics, digits in a ledger of the expected. That's not the action of a mature professional industry. It's not that normalisation is not the action of a caring society. It's the action of an industry that sees its workers as expendable, as cannon fodder. And it's a sign of a society that increasingly is rotten to its core. There you are. We have a league table to find out which industry sector kills the most people each year. Makes you think, doesn't it? The only thing that stops me going oil quick, says Chris Ford, is the cost, not just the cost of buying it in the first place, but the ongoing costs involved. Yeah, and unfortunately, it's the one thing I would say about oil quick, and I'm saying this as an absolute advocate. I really am a very firm believer in oil quick and all that it can do. But it's one of those things you can't be half pregnant with oil quick. It's no good just having one machine and a couple of attachments that suit it. You need to go all in. You look at AR Demolition, you look at Armac and other demolition companies. It's not a case of oil quicking one machine. They've oil quick an entire fleet, and they've modified their attachment fleet to suit that as well. You are talking about one hell of a lot of cost. The one thing I would say, though, going back to what we were saying about sort of time and motion studies and that kind of thing, I think if you ever get the opportunity to run an oil quick alongside a more traditional method of mounting an attachment, it's one of those. It's like I really can't not. It's that much better, quicker, safer, more effective. It really is. We did a film, 10 plus years ago, which we called, what did we call it? Game Changer. The Game Changer. We did that film with the fine folks at ECY back when they were still a thing. And it really is an absolute eye-opener. Had a site induction on a massive project, and the guy that was giving it said, we're expecting a death on site because of the amount of workers we have. Wow. But when you think about it, the whole subject of that monologue was normalisation. Do you remember after we'd finished all the work on the 2012 Olympics in London? Don't get me wrong, I think the people that did the London Olympics did a fine job, particularly the opening ceremony. Everything about it, I think, was absolutely excellent. But there was actually talk in sort of newspapers and on TV about the fact that we'd managed to put on the Olympics without killing anyone. Now, to my mind, yeah, I do understand how construction works, and I understand how demolition works and everything else. But I would have thought that not killing somebody would have been kind of the baseline. Turns out, apparently, when you actually dig through the darker recesses of the Olympic movement, a city hosting a winter or a summer Olympics is expecting people to die in the course of the works. Nowhere more so, if you remember rightly, with the Qatar World Cup a couple of years ago, they were talking hundreds, depending who you ask, potentially even thousands of people dying in the construction of stadia over in Qatar. Call me naive if you will, but should we not be at the point now where if you work in construction, you go home safely at night as an expectation? You know, when bear in mind my commute is 13 stairs and I'm sat here in four walls, and you know, my job is such an expectation of safety that I don't even think about it. I turn up here and I expect to be able to walk out of here in a couple of minutes' time, go and have a cup of tea, chat with the wife, stroke the dog, and then get back on with my day. Should that not be the baseline, the norm, the expectation of people in demolition and construction? Going to jump ahead. I know I've got a comment there from Dan, but Andy says all 35 construction deaths in 2024-2025 were from falls from height. This is despite decades of regulation and campaigns. Yeah, absolutely right. So I know this is something I say all the time. You know, we have devised methods of putting man on the moon, assuming you don't believe that Stanley Kubrick had a hand in it. We've devised methods of sending men and women to the very depths of the ocean. You know, we can communicate around the world instantly and free of charge. We have at our fingertips the sum of all human knowledge in our telephones. We have all of that. We know that falls from height are taking asbestos-related diseases and taking suicide out of the way. That is our most deadly factor, is falls from height. You would have thought with the collective wisdom of everyone in the demolition industry, everyone in the construction industry, both here and overseas, we would by now have devised a way in which we had made that a thing of the past. And we have the capability. I mean, certainly in the demolition sector, the top-down way from desk bay, if you're taking down a tower block, you install that, and you couldn't fall off a building if you tried, because the thing is surrounded on all four sides. You can't fall off, debris can't fall off, machines can't fall off. You're as safe as houses. We have the solution, and we actively choose not to use it. Now, that might not necessarily be the demolition contractors. It might be the client deciding, that sounds a bit expensive, let's risk it for a biscuit, in which case people will continue to die. And we have normalized that. We have normalized the fact that you will do work within this industry and potentially not get paid, or even if you do get paid, you won't get paid what you were expected to get paid. And when you are paid, it's generally later than you were promised you'd be paid. You know, people like Dan will be, you know, he's starting work in Strood. I don't know quite what the contractual arrangements are, but, you know, maybe he's got a week, maybe he's got a month, maybe he's got 6 months of work ahead of him. But there is every possibility that he could turn up for work on Monday, and by Tuesday he could be told, no, we don't need you anymore. You know, he's up sticks, moved away from Watford to be there on site, you know, in Wootton under Edge or wherever he's going to end up. He's committed himself to that, and the employers just could potentially just go, nah, face don't fit. Off you go. Andy Duffel, late but welcome nonetheless. Morning, everyone, he says. Still no work and still doing the horses. That's why I'm late to the party. Hopefully I'll get a ring next week. Still get paid 39 hours though, so that's good. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what the weather's got in store. I know wind is more of a problem for you than snow. Be interested to see how that all plays out. The law of averages says accidents will happen and folk will die. There'll be road vehicle accidents today. It is to be expected. Same with our industry. I kind of agree with that. I kind of agree with that. I do think accidents happen. That's the nature of accidents. You know, when I've said that I've got a very safe job and everything else, I could quite easily fall down the stairs on my way to work one morning. You know, there's a candle burning behind me. I might have burnt myself while I was lighting the candle. All of these things are a possibility. But surely part of our job as a supposedly professional and mature industry is to minimize the likelihood and the possibility of accidents. If we know that 35 people died in 2024-25 as a result of falling from height, if we could reduce the number of people working at height, ergo, you'd think, come 2026, we'd have less people dying as a result of working from height. You'd think. Dan says, problem with Oil Quick is operators don't get out to clean the seals, so seals need regular changes, and the O-ring's not very robust or strong. I don't necessarily agree with that, actually. I've always found the Oil Quick to be extremely resilient, and by and large, it's pretty much a sealed system. You know, when you disengage, the whole thing shuts itself up. You will get some dirt ingress, as you will with any sort of job, but I've actually found that to be a benefit of Oil Quick, not a disadvantage. It seems to me a lot to do with subcontractors of unfamiliar sites with teams that don't have a working familiarity in a constantly changing environment. Yeah. I know I have a nasty habit of falling back on football analogies, but when you look at an international team like England or Brazil or whatever, one of the things that always strikes you is you've got the very best players from that nation, and yet they don't play as well as they do for their clubs. And part of that is precisely that. I think there is that unfamiliarity, you know. Just trying to think. I mean, the old West Ham captain who's now with Arsenal, Declan Rice, he plays with Arsenal. He's played for Arsenal for the last 2 years, and he knows who is around him and what they're likely to do and how they're likely to do it. Put him in an England shirt, and he's now playing with basically a bunch of strangers, and he has no idea what they're about to do next, and they have no idea what he's about to do next. And I do think there's a degree of that, and I think that's been exacerbated by this switch to self-employed and agency workers, you know, rather than having a regular team doing the same thing time and time again. And I realize you might get a bit of fatigue and a bit of complacency, but I do think there is an advantage to that. On that subject, just very quickly, when the nuclear demolition framework was let, ERIF put together what they refer to as their A-team. It was a bunch of guys, both operators, managers, supervisors, who basically did nothing but nuclear work. They knew the nuclear sector inside out. They knew the makeup of the power stations and everything that went with it. And those guys were literally, we'll finish this job, then we'll do that job, and we'll finish that job, and we'll go to that job. There was a consistent team. I think we've lost a degree of that. I think we've lost a large degree of that, actually. Gary says, I was asked, when do you think about safety? And I said, every minute of the day, regardless. You're on site, on the road, or at home. You should consider safety in everything you do for your own and everyone else's safety. I would imagine that is. Do you know, it's funny. Oddly enough, this guy was working for ERIF. They'd appointed a guy as their head of health and safety. I don't think he's with them anymore. I can't remember the guy's name. But, he was an absolute stickler. He really was. You know, he was one of those, you know, like Hawkeye. I've spotted a hazard. You know, very, very good at his job. And I actually said to him, you know, how does this? Can you switch this off? Do you finish at 5 o'clock and go home and walk under ladders and stuff like that? And he said, you'd be astounded. He said, you know, I'm literally going around flicking off light switches and flicking off power sockets and there's one of my kids' Lego bricks on the floor. I better pick that up in case somebody stands on it or whatever. It really becomes like a part and parcel. You know, it's not a thing that you switch on when you walk on site and switch off when you leave. It's a constant. I absolutely agree with that, Gary. Andy Darvell says, downright Dan, you still have to look after them, give the connections a wipe every time, especially in demo to save the seals. Okay. The Eastern Hemisphere, construction is madness. I wouldn't want to work there. They're in Crocs and walking around, no high-vis or helmet. True. And obviously we had the that big fire over in, was it Hong Kong, in the run up to the New Year, or run up to Christmas rather, with the bamboo scaffold. I think there is a degree of that. What I do wonder what their health and safety stats are like. You know, we tend to see ours, and I occasionally get a glimpse of the stats from America, but I actually wonder what they're like. The Darwin effect sorts the chaff from the grain. I mean, I know you're saying that partly tongue in cheek, and as I say, I mean, you know, people, there will be accidents. We're talking about an industry right now where we can have machines drive themselves. Just going back to Despe, I mean, obviously, I'm talking about demolition. You can basically encapsulate the top of a tower block and bring it down. Nothing's going to fall off. No people, no debris, no machines. But they've also devised a system that is that in reverse. They've actually deployed it over in Manhattan. And I think it's going somewhere else in America, actually. So that's a top-down way. I'm not sure what they call the one that goes up, but as part of construction, they have like a cocoon that goes up with the building. So again, not so much of a problem when you're working on the ground floor, possibly even the first floor. But by the time you get to the second, the third, the 50th, the 100th floor, particularly in Manhattan, you are completely sealed. That notion of people falling and injuring themselves, or were still falling to their death, does not exist. They've done away with it. They've consigned that to the pages of history, but only if somebody is willing to pay them to do so. Chris Ford says, how many people died doing the same thing? I can't help thinking that some people are like lemmings. Yeah, there is a degree of that. But I mean, I also wonder about going back to what we were saying earlier about site supervisors. How much safety monitoring are you doing if you are in a site cabin on your laptop? And yes, you may have started the day with a toolbox talk and a very specific or a job-specific safety briefing. You may have highlighted a particular hazard, be it asbestos, slips and trips, working at height. You may have done that at 8 o'clock this morning. But the rest of the day? Are you walking the site and saying, "Oi, Dave," they're all called Dave. "Dave, don't do that. That's a hazard to you and to the guys working inside you. Don't do that." Or are you sat in your site cabin beavering away on your laptop to send a report back to the head office or to the client or to both? I don't agree with that, Dan. I had one on a 30-ton with steel wrist for over a year. I never had any issues. Yeah, that as I say, a large part of my exposure to oil quick within the demolition industry has been with some very, very elite level demolition contractors, ARMAC, who take enormously good care of their gear. So maybe I've been spoiled. Maybe I've seen oil quick working precisely how it's supposed to. But certainly my experience is it's not a problem. It is, as I say, the doors closed to keep the debris out. Let's have a look. What do we got here? Dan says, in this industry, the seals aren't when changing implements. I've seen it and worked them. Yeah, well, as I say, listen, maybe I've been spoiled, and Gary's had a similar experience to me, and Gary's a good operator and everything else. So maybe I've been spoiled. Maybe my experience with it is not as completely telling. Dan says, I wouldn't want to see their stats. It'd be mind-boggling. I wonder about that though. Listen, I'm pretty sure that our sandal-wearing brothers in that part of the hemisphere, I'm sure their health and safety stats are way worse than ours. That's not to be, despite the fact there is a league table, I'm not trying to compete here. But I wonder what the implication or the impact of no hard hat, no safety boots, and no high vis actually. These things never ease. But I wonder, if you compared the UK demolition industry to, say, the Morocco, I don't know why Morocco, but let's just say the Moroccan demolition industry, you did a side-by-side comparison, analysing, in quite some detail, how people had been injured, maimed, or possibly even killed. I wonder what the impact would be without PPE. Going back to what Andy said, 35 people died in 2024, 2025 on UK demolition and construction sites, all falls from height. Site boots wouldn't have helped. Hard hats wouldn't have helped. High vis wouldn't have helped. Safety goggles wouldn't have helped. Safety gloves wouldn't have helped. And yet, as an industry, we insist upon PPE, all the things that I've just mentioned, but we continue to allow people to work at height, knowing full well that the PPE that we've provided to them at enormous cost will have no impact upon them if they fall from height. Weird, right? I have to say, up until I saw that comment, I'd never actually thought about that. But that is an interesting one, isn't it? How much is this industry spending on PPE each year? Particularly now, we have a new regulation that basically means that even if you're an agency worker, you should be provided with PPE for the job. High vis, gloves, glasses, boots. We're spending millions and millions each year providing people with PPE that will not, based on 2024-25, will not prevent a single site fatality. Seems like a bit of a misplaced spend, doesn't it? Now, as I say, I'm not expecting anybody to watch this and say, that's it, we're doing away with PPE, it's all a bollocks. I'm not expecting us to lower our standards, but we're willing to spend millions, literally millions, equipping our staff with safety gear that will not actually protect them from the most deadly hazard on our sites. Indian shipbreakers are a good example of how not to manage health and safety. Yeah, I mean, I do, I've watched some of the videos from India and Pakistan and places like that. And that is really man as expendable, isn't it? It's almost a case of, they I'm not entirely sure what the proper expression is, but they drive a ship up onto the shore and then they send people in, literally wearing a pair of shorts, burning torch, working at height, potentially being hit by falling steel, potentially falling to their death or being injured or maimed. Doesn't matter because they've got another 500 people stood at the gate waiting to take their place. Gary, it depends on what you're doing in environment. As when I worked for Austin's Machines, we had to change seals regularly. I wonder. But there was there was talks of tougher rings being made. Don't know if it ever came to fruition. As I say, I mean, I am not the best judge. As I've said, I've seen Oil Quick in its ideal surroundings with people that really take good care of their equipment. Maybe there is a degree of that, but my personal feeling is you'll actually get less contamination by using Oil Quick than you would using a manual system. What do you do when you disconnect a hose to change attachments? Drop it in the dirt, don't you? Yes, we all know there are caps out there that will stop that. How many people stop to put the cap on? Very few. Drop it in the dirt, maybe give it a wipe with a rag, which is probably pushing the contamination into the system, and then you hook it up again. Whereas Oil Quick, not a problem. Anyway, people, I've talked for plenty long enough, and it's been all over the place. We've done it all today, haven't we? The normalisation of fatal accidents, a league table for fatal accidents. We've done PPE, we've done oil quick, we've done all points in between. It is time for me to bid you all a fond adieu. I'll be back tomorrow for yet more of the same. I do have if somebody can let me know where I can find that Nigel Williams video, because I've got something coming up talking about the fact that I think I've called it the patient is sick. It's talking about the industry and comparing it to a frail and ill person, sick person. But I'd be interested to see what Nigel's got to say. So if anyone can send me a link to that, be interested to see it. There's some interesting clips of our colonial cousins operating crushers. Yeah, but then we're not exactly great with the crusher thing. Couple of things. I mean, we filmed. I'm not going to say who it was, but me and Fred filmed a demolition company using a crusher, and we put a drone up at one point, flew over the crusher, and we got a complaint from the demolition contractor saying, "Excuse me, you do know that somebody shouldn't be on the crusher, and you filmed it." It's your employee, mate. He shouldn't be on the fucking crusher. You know that. You've allowed him to be there. We just happen to have a drone. Okay, we vetted the video, but also going back to the notion of plant works moving from its current home over to the NEC in a couple of years' time. The NEC, there was a waste show there 2 or 3 years ago where they were demonstrating a crusher in the outside area, and a bit of rock or a bit of steel jumped out and injured somebody. I think it was caught a woman in the leg. Yeah, you would have thought that would be fair. Not just controlled environment, but you would have thought that they would be, the NEC would have insisted on utmost safety. Somebody still got injured. So the insistence of wearing PPE is because primarily construction poses the highest risks. Yes. Listen, I want people to be seen. High vis remains. I don't want anyone's toes to be crushed. Site boots remain. I don't want anyone to get a bit of debris on the top of the head, although depending on the size of the bit of debris, may or may not save you. But going back to what we said with Andy Thornton there, the biggest killer is falls from height. High vis, hard hat, site boots will not make any bleeding difference. It's that notion of the bigger picture. Take a step back. What can we do differently to make this industry better, safer, more efficient? Andy says, have a good day, everyone. And remember, let's be careful out there. Oh, there's a throwback. There's a throwback to one of my all-time favorites, Hill Street Blues. Let's be careful out there. Yeah. That was one of my absolute favorites. His name was Phil somebody or other. It was the sergeant, the drill sergeant, or I can't remember what he was, but yeah, sending the police out to work. Let's be careful out there. And I think that's a good note to end on. Andy, thank you for that. Everybody, let's be careful out there. Dan saying, another great show. Yeah, absolutely was. Great theme tune as well. Could hear it playing in my head. I won't hum it for you because it will ruin your day. If you're not aware with Hill Street Blues, go and look it up because it was very, very good. One of the things that I'm going to end the show in a second. One of the things that I think was very, very, very good indeed about Hill Street Blues, although it was quite tough to take at the time. They had no issue with killing off a main character. I can't remember the names of the characters because it was a long while ago, but there was a couple. They weren't a couple, but there was a male and a female officer who always drove in tandem. And, they had a bit of a relationship going on, not a romantic relationship, but they had a bit of a chemistry about them. And in one episode, probably a couple of seasons in, they were called to a drug den, and they went in, and you're expecting a bit of shoot up and everything else, and then sure enough, the male part of the male-female team was shot and died, and it was shocking, but also realistic. Don't be good, be competent, says Andy Thornton. Andy, you should have all these printed on T-shirts, and we'll put them on sale or something. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Look after yourselves, because I get the impression that nobody else is likely to. Till I see you tomorrow, have a good day. I'll see you all very soon. All the best.